Sarah Thompson was a 28-year-old librarian in the small, close-knit town of Winfield. She was well liked by everyone in town, known for her friendly nature and dedication to her work. Every morning, she would open the town's small library, where she worked as the head librarian. She lived alone in a cozy house on the outskirts of town, just a short walk from the library. Her life seemed peaceful and routine, nothing that would suggest she would suddenly vanish one evening. Sarah had a close circle of friends, and her best friend, Emma, was one of the few people she confided in about her personal life. While she didn't have any obvious enemies or issues, Sarah had been going through a bit of a rough patch. Her recent breakup with a boyfriend had left her feeling emotionally drained. But on the surface, she seemed to be managing well. On the evening of June 15, 2011, Sarah was supposed to meet Emma at the local diner for coffee, routine catch-up. But by the time Emma arrived, Sarah was nowhere to be found. On the evening of June 15, 2011, Sarah Thompson left her house, telling her best friend, Emma, that she'd meet her at the local diner around 7 p.m. They'd been planning the catch-up for days, and Emma had been looking forward to it. But when Emma arrived at the diner, Sarah wasn't there. Emma figured Sarah might have been delayed or gotten caught up with something, so she waited, texting her to check in. Hours passed, and Sarah didn't respond. Emma grew worried, especially since it was unlike Sarah to not show up without any warning. She tried calling Sarah's phone, straight to voicemail. With no other options, Emma decided to go by Sarah's house, but when she arrived, the house was eerily quiet, and Sarah wasn't there either. At first, Emma thought maybe Sarah had just gone out with someone else or taken a spontaneous trip, but as the night stretched on, she became increasingly concerned. The sense of unease grew when she realized she couldn't reach Sarah's family either. By the following morning, Emma went to the police. The morning after Sarah's disappearance, a breakthrough occurred. Sarah's car, a silver sedan, was discovered abandoned on a lonely stretch of road on the outskirts of Winfield. The car was parked at an odd angle, partially off the side of the road, with the driver's side door slightly ajar. The keys were still in the ignition, but there was no sign of Sarah. The police were immediately alerted, and they combed the area for any signs of Sarah or a struggle. The car was carefully examined for fingerprints or anything that could indicate what had happened. But there was nothing unusual, no signs of forced entry, no damage to the vehicle, and no evidence that Sarah had been taken against her will. What baffled investigators was that Sarah's car was found in an area she wouldn't have normally been. It was far from her usual routes, and there were no known connections to the area. Her phone, purse, and wallet were all missing, which only added to the growing mystery of her disappearance. Despite the car being a key clue, it only deepened the mystery. The police had no answers, no explanation for why Sarah's car was there, and no leads on her whereabouts. As days passed with no sign of Sarah, Emma became more frantic. She knew something was terribly wrong. On the second day of Sarah's disappearance, Emma went straight to the Winfield Police Department to report her friend missing. Sarah hadn't been in contact with anyone, and the fact that her car had been found abandoned only deepened the concern. Detective Rachel Ford was assigned to the case. With Sarah's disappearance, the entire town of Winfield was on edge. The police launched a formal search, focusing initially on the area where Sarah's car had been found. They organized search teams, scouring the woods and fields around the road, hoping to find any trace of her. They also started talking to neighbors, checking for security footage, and looking for any signs that Sarah had been seen leaving the car or interacting with anyone. In parallel, the police reached out to Sarah's family, hoping they could shed some light on any possible reason for her disappearance. Sarah's parents were in shock, saying their daughter had no reason to leave her life behind, and she certainly wouldn't have just driven off without telling anyone. The case quickly gained media attention, and volunteers from the town joined the search efforts. But after days of combing the area, no new evidence surfaced. The search came up empty, leaving the police with even more questions, and a growing sense of urgency to find Sarah before it was too late. Weeks passed with little progress in the investigation. The search efforts had stalled, and there were no solid leads. Then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a mysterious anonymous tip. The police received a call from someone who claimed to have seen a suspicious figure near Sarah's car the night she disappeared. The witness described the figure as tall, wearing a dark hoodie, and walking away from Sarah's car around the time she would have gone missing. The person couldn't provide much more detail, but this was the first clue that suggested someone else might have been involved in Sarah's disappearance. The police immediately began following up on the tip. They went through nearby security footage from businesses and homes that might have captured the figure leaving the area. But despite their best efforts, no clear images emerged that could identify the person. The witness's vague description left investigators with little to go on. Still, the tip reignited hope in the case. Was this person responsible for Sarah's disappearance? Or was it just another dead end? The search continued, but this new lead raised more questions about what might have happened to Sarah and who might have been involved. Months after Sarah's disappearance, the case seemed to have hit a dead end. Then, an unexpected twist came when Mark Bailey, a local man with a history of petty thefts, was arrested for unrelated charges. While in custody, he made a startling confession. Mark claimed that he knew more about Sarah's disappearance than anyone realized. According to him, he had been in a brief, secret relationship with Sarah prior to her vanishing. On the night of June 15, Sarah had confronted him about their relationship, accusing him of seeing other women. Tensions escalated during the argument, and Mark said he accidentally pushed Sarah, causing her to fall and hit her head on a rock. In a panic, Mark claimed he took Sarah's body and hid it in the woods, afraid of facing the consequences. He described how he moved her car to the secluded spot, intending to make it look like she had disappeared on her own. But in the chaos of the night, he said he'd been too scared to reveal what happened. The police were both shocked and skeptical of his confession. Was Mark telling the truth, or was he simply fabricating a story to cover up something darker? Despite his confession, the police found no physical evidence to support his claims, and no trace of Sarah's body was ever found in the area where Mark said he left her. Following Mark Bailey's confession, the police focused their efforts on the area where he claimed to have hidden Sarah's body, the woods just outside of Winfield. Teams of investigators and search volunteers combed the dense forest, hoping to find any trace of Sarah. They examined every inch of the ground, searching for clues, clothing, or anything that could confirm Mark's story. They also dug through nearby areas, including an old, abandoned cabin that was close to where Mark had indicated he'd left her. As the days turned into weeks, the search expanded to include forensic teams, cadaver dogs, and even aerial drone footage to scan larger areas that couldn't be easily accessed on foot. But despite all these resources, nothing was found, no body, no signs of a struggle, and no physical evidence that Sarah had ever been in the woods. This lack of evidence created even more confusion. If Mark's confession was true, why hadn't they found Sarah? Did he lie about where he left her, or was there a different explanation? The police began to question Mark's credibility. Was he trying to cover up a crime, or was he being coerced into making a false confession? The longer the search went on without finding any concrete evidence, the more the case seemed to spiral into uncertainty. The lack of Sarah's body left the investigation in a state of limbo, and investigators were left with only Mark's words to guide them. As time passed without finding Sarah's body or any additional evidence, doubts about Mark Bailey's confession began to grow. Investigators questioned whether he had been truthful or if he was simply fabricating a story. Some believed that Mark might have been trying to cover up something far more sinister, while others speculated that he could have been coerced into confessing to a crime he didn't commit. There were several inconsistencies in Mark's story. For example, he claimed that Sarah had fallen and hit her head on a rock during their argument, but no injuries consistent with such a fall were ever found on her body or at the supposed scene. Additionally, no one could confirm Mark's version of events. No one else had heard the argument, and no physical evidence tied him to Sarah's disappearance at the time. Some even suggested that he may have been manipulated by the police into confessing, given that he was already in custody for unrelated charges. Moreover, as the investigation continued, police learned that Sarah and Mark's brief relationship had ended months before her disappearance, and they hadn't been in contact in weeks. This cast further doubt on Mark's motive. Was there truly an emotional conflict, or was Mark simply trying to create a narrative to cover his tracks? The more investigators dug into Mark's past and his relationship with Sarah, the less clear the picture became. The theory that Mark was the one responsible for Sarah's disappearance started to lose traction. Could someone else have been involved? Or was Sarah's disappearance even more mysterious than anyone had imagined? Despite the numerous leads, the anonymous tip, and Mark's shocking confession, the investigation into Sarah Thompson's disappearance began to lose momentum. As weeks turned into months, the police were no closer to solving the case. Mark's confession seemed more and more unreliable, and with no physical evidence to back up his claims, the case started to stall. The search for Sarah's body continued, but the dense woods and surrounding areas were scoured time and again with no success. Every lead was either exhausted or led to a dead end. Meanwhile, local news outlets and the town of Winfield started to move on, though the people who knew Sarah were left with a nagging feeling of unresolved dread. The town's residents remained on edge, with many asking, had Sarah been the victim of foul play, or had something even more sinister occurred? Had Mark, or someone else, murdered her? Or was it possible that Sarah had disappeared voluntarily, perhaps leaving her old life behind for reasons no one could understand? By the end of 2011, Sarah's case was officially considered cold. The police had no new leads, no clear suspects, and no answers. It was as if Sarah had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions that no one could answer. As of today, Sarah Thompson's disappearance remains one of Winfield's most haunting and unresolved mysteries. The case, now classified as cold, has never been closed, but it seems to have drifted into obscurity with time. The police never found Sarah's body, and Mark Bailey's confession, along with his inconsistencies, remains questionable. Was Mark really involved in her disappearance, or did he make up the story to cover up something else? Or was Sarah the victim of a far more sinister plot, orchestrated by someone else entirely? No new evidence has come to light, and no further suspects have emerged. Some locals still wonder if Sarah simply walked away from her old life, though it seems unlikely given everything she had going for her, a promising career, close friends, and a loving family. For Emma, Sarah's best friend, the unanswered questions continue to haunt her. Why did Sarah never come home that night? Was there a deeper reason behind her sudden disappearance? And what happened to her in those final hours? Emma still holds out hope that one day, the truth will come to light, but for now, Sarah's case remains a chilling enigma. The town of Winfield, once a place of calm and normalcy, now carries a heavy shadow. Sarah Thompson's disappearance continues to linger in the minds of those who knew her, and her story serves as a constant reminder that sometimes, not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Sarah Thompson's disappearance remains a chilling mystery that has haunted the small town of Winfield for over a decade. Despite countless hours of searching, an unreliable confession, and numerous theories, no one knows for sure what happened to Sarah that fateful night. Was she the victim of a tragic accident? A deliberate act of violence? Or did she walk away from everything, leaving behind a life that many thought she was happy with? Mark Bailey's confession continues to raise more questions than answers, and the lack of physical evidence only deepens the mystery. Was he telling the truth? Or was someone else involved, perhaps someone who still walks among them in Winfield today? For those who knew Sarah, the pain of not knowing what truly happened to her is almost unbearable. Her friends, her family, and even the residents of Winfield continue to live with the haunting question, where is Sarah Thompson? But the most disturbing question still lingers, could someone close to Sarah have been involved? Or is there a darker truth buried beneath the surface of this small town? As time goes on, the case grows colder, but the mystery, that only deepens. What do you think happened to Sarah? Was it a simple accident, or something far more sinister? Stay tuned, because there are more secrets hiding in the shadows of Winfield, and the truth might be closer than we think. But for now, one thing remains certain, some stories never truly end.